do want to try, to move toward more interaction with one another. And, we're not sure exactly how long we'll be continuing to do virtual sessions, but as long as we are, we may be opening things up for more discussion after our sessions and things like that. So I think when you have your camera on, it kind of makes that a little bit more interpersonal, I guess, maybe. So so definitely always still optional, but yeah, we definitely invite you to turn on your camera and afterwards, if you have questions or something that you want to share, I think Roxie put it in the invitation that we would have that as part of the program today, and will most likely for the future. So, well, since I gave that spiel, it's now 12:04, so I'll go ahead and get started. This is really a tremendous pleasure for me on a couple of levels. My job today is not to introduce Roxie, but to introduce to you the newest member of our board, who I know and have known for the past 5 years, as I have served as the Director of Human Resources at Indiana University East. Our newest board member is part of the HR team at IU East, and she is known to you as Doretta Callahan. We're so happy to have her on board in this capacity. She has already jumped in with both feet and is putting all of her many years of experience. She has 15 years in human resources. So she's putting all of that experience and skill to use for the EIHRA, and we're very glad to have her on board as the Professional Development Director. So I'm actually going to turn it over to her, and then Doretta will have her first public task to introduce our speaker for today.
Welcome, Doretta.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. I appreciate that. So as Evelyn said, my name is Doretta Callahan, and I come to you today as my new role as the program director. And so today I would like to first welcome everyone to our Zoom 101, and I am looking forward to this class with Roxie Deer. So I would like to introduce Roxie. So Roxie is a lifelong Richmond resident and currently works for the Wayne County Area Chambers of Commerce. She is the Director of Membership and Education. She works one-on-one with businesses to make sure that they have the necessary tools and resources that they need to be successful. Roxie is the staff leader for the HYPE of Wayne County, the community's young professional organization as well. During Roxie's free time, Roxie volunteers with numerous nonprofits for the community, including Read Bravo and Genesis of Richmond. She also explores, she also loves to explore new places, and she loves, I know, to promote Wayne County and small businesses. Roxie is a dog mom to Hudson and Misha. So today I would like everyone to give Roxie a welcome, and Roxie, it's ready for you.
Okay, thank you, Doretta. I know you were a little nervous about making an introduction today, but I think you did a great job. If everyone can give Doretta either a round of applause, I see Nancy giving a hand clap, or drop a comment and tell her she did a great job in the chat box, I would love that.
Thank you.
Great job. Can everyone see my screen that says Zoom 101? Are we seeing it? Okay, great. I love it. So before we even get started today, I want to do a quick poll, and I'm going to launch this poll. So you'll see it on your screen. It has 2 questions. Go ahead and answer those questions as they pop up. Give people a few more minutes, a few more seconds to answer. I know we've got some people joining in on phone calls, so they may not be able to answer the Zoom. There we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll so we can see the results. All right, so as you can see, this group is very comfortable logging in and participating in a meeting, but we may not be as comfortable hosting a meeting. And I really want to make sure that you feel comfortable today walking away, knowing what your role is as the host, some fun ways to engage your audience. And also, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on things I've learned along the way. Let's see, let me end this poll so we can move on. Let me tell you a little bit of my background here. When COVID started, I had never used Zoom before. So a year ago, Saturday, I literally was worried about where I was going to get toilet paper, if I was going to be working, and now I had to learn a new platform. And I'm trying to learn the platform while my dogs are barking in the back. Anybody else have an experience like that? I see you all shaking your heads and laughing because we've all been through it. I remember literally the first day we were having a Zoom call, we were having Representative Pence on the call, and it was my first Zoom. And I said, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is going to be bad. And I called Laura Lee Heights, and I was literally in tears. And I said, I don't know what I'm doing. What do I do? And she said, we're going to get you through this. So I owe everything I know, and everything I'm teaching you today is either trial by fire or from Laura Lee Heights. So I'm not the pro. If you have questions and I don't know the answer, please, I will follow up with you. Ask me the tough questions so that I can become better too. As we go through everything today, drop questions in the chat box, unmute yourself and ask them. If you interrupt me, you're not going to bother me. I am recording this because a few chamber members have asked to see this presentation as well. And so I want to make sure that they have the access to this as well. It's a very important topic for so many people. Okay, so if you're taking notes, if you are writing anything down, I have one rule that I want at the top of your page. And make sure that if you don't learn anything else today, make sure this is the one thing you learn. Are you ready? Never, ever, ever post your Zoom link to social media. And we're going to talk about this in a minute, but I want to make sure this is at the top of your page. Never do it. I've got a great story to tell you a little bit later about why, but I want to make sure that you hear this and that you know this, and that if you don't learn anything, if you tune me out the rest of the day, make sure you know this. Okay. So the first things first, the first thing when you get a Zoom account and you're about to host your meeting, set your Zoom account up for success. Do some things right at the beginning, give your foundation a really strong start. And the first thing is always have a waiting room. I know you were in a waiting room today before you came into the meeting. That's to protect you as the host. You know who's coming in. You don't have any surprises. When Hayden logged in with Lisa's name, I knew that. But in other terms, it could have been somebody who isn't actually Lisa Dollar because she was already on the screen. This is a good way to filter in anybody that you want in there. It also gives you a chance to log in without anybody else being in the room. You can pull in your speakers ahead of time. Sometimes when I have a guest speaker, I want just me and that speaker in the room for a few minutes to prep, make sure they feel comfortable. That way nobody's coming in and they're starting conversations that we're not ready to have. This gives you a chance to really feel comfortable with the room before your audience is there. Also, make sure, and I did this today, you can unmute yourself today at any time, but naturally when you logged in, you were muted. You had to opt in to mute out. And that's great because like we've all been in meetings where dogs or babies or whoever it may be starts barking and crying, or maybe your coworker's in the room and they're saying something you don't want publicized. This is protecting your participants, making sure they're muted. Cameras are typically off as well. You never know what someone's doing behind the screen. So if their cameras are off naturally, you're not exposing them or giving them the opportunity you're giving them the opportunity to show in and opt into that vision. So I've been in meetings where I didn't realize I was unmuted from the beginning. And I remember one time I was like doing my dishes while in the meeting, and they could hear me, and somebody texted me and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm doing my dishes while I listen in." And they're like, "We can all hear you." And I was like, "Oh no, that's the worst thing ever." And you didn't want them to know. I didn't want them to know, but we've all been there. We've all listened to a Zoom call while doing something else. So make sure you mute your participants. Also, make sure that if you are sharing your screen with anybody else, that they have that access to do that ahead of time. And those can all be set up in your Zoom account on the back end. When you're scheduling a Zoom call, how many of you, show of hands or in the chat box, have seen this screen before? A few of you, Evelyn, Lisa, Hayden. Yeah, great. So this is, Shannon, this is the side where if you're creating a Zoom call, this is what it's going to look like. And there's some things, and I know it's a little blurry, I want to point out to you. So when you're scheduling a Zoom, this right here is the name of your Zoom call. So for example, if you've never set up a Zoom call and you go to do it, you're going to schedule a meeting, and this is what it's going to look like. A few things to note here. Always make sure your date and time are when you want the meeting to start. Make sure it's in the right time zone. I actually had to remember that we were in the Eastern time zone and not in the Central time zone, because for about a month, all my meetings were off schedule and no one could figure out why. So just a heads up on that one. This is a kind of a hidden gem on Zoom, and that's the required registration. A lot of people don't know this exists, and you actually did it today to get this link. I sent out a registration link instead of doing Eventbrite or doing some platform outside of Zoom. This actually is your own registration, and it sends you the Zoom link when you sign up. You can also, if you want, like I know Jaretta wants the list of people who participated today, we'll be able to pull that after the meeting and see who logged in, who's there. And that way, at the beginning, we had Eventbrite, and then Eventbrite linked you to Zoom, and it was just a mess. Zoom integrated this pretty quickly into COVID to make sure that you had a registration option. It's really user-friendly. As far as security, Zoom did not at the beginning of COVID require you to do any of these, and they were having a lot of issues. So now you have to pick at least one of these three options, either a passcode, a waiting room, or required I'll never get that word, required. So I either do passcode or waiting room, and sometimes if it's a high priority meeting with like elected officials, or if it's an interview with someone and you don't want anybody interrupting that shouldn't be there, I will do both of these options. Any questions about this screen and what you're seeing right here now? Any questions?
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
And this may be stupid, but so in order to even get to this screen, I mean, does each person who wants to do Zoom, do you just go to Zoom's website, set up your own registration information? Like, I've never even tried to do my own meeting yet.
Yeah, so there are some different Zoom account types. And so we have a company type. So we're able to invite up to 100 people on our account, and we have unlimited time in our meetings. If your company doesn't have that, you will be limited to the free trial. And that's, you get 45 minutes, I think 40 or 45 minutes of meeting time, which honestly isn't that bad because meetings shouldn't be much more than that in these days. But if your meeting is longer, if you know you're going to be on for a couple of hours or whatever, you may have to up your account type, and there's a paid subscription for that. And so when you do that, when you create your account, and if you have a name on Zoom, you've already started that process. You would just click host a meeting, and it gives you this option to schedule the meeting.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Lisa?
Yeah, thank you.
There's also, when you download Zoom, there's also, I don't know if many of you are using Outlook or Google, but they do have the option to integrate right into your calendar. So if you're sending out very specific emails, like Melissa and I just schedule it right on our calendar and click add Zoom link, and it sends out a Zoom link right there. The other half of scheduling a meeting, I want to make sure that everyone knows, is that you can, even if you've set it up on the back end, you can change any of those settings right here on the schedule meeting. So your host video should always be on. Who's ever hosting the meeting, be present. It makes it a much more entertaining Zoom call, but you can opt if your participants are on or off automatically, like we talked about. I always set audio for both because we do have people who call in, they're more comfortable on their phone with Zoom. And then this one, like I said, always mute them. And if you want somebody else, in our office, we use this frequently as an alternative host. If you are working closely, so maybe Evelyn and Nancy are working on a meeting together, Evelyn could add Nancy right here. And Evelyn and Nancy would both have the same sharing power in that meeting. It makes it just a little bit easier. Lisa, do you have another question? No, okay.
No, sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay, so how
Hey,
many
Roxie,
of you?
Roxie, I have a really quick question.
Yeah.
On that sharing sometimes, and it could be with, because I'm logging in maybe to my IU East one, because I have tried that before and it doesn't work.
The alternative host piece?
Yes.
So that might be an account setting. And I know a lot of you are on big corporate company accounts with many, many, many people. That may be an account setting at the corporate level. So I don't, if it's Jason that runs your company account, they may have that protected so that employees aren't using it in their personal.
Okay, so would it be better maybe to then just use more of a personal one?
In the work field, I use mine. And Evelyn, maybe you know what IU East policy is, but I think using your corporate account is fine because
Okay.
if you log in right now into a meeting and you don't have an alternative host, you can still set one up once you're in the meeting.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Any other questions? These are great questions. Okay. So how many of you before COVID had used Zoom before in any capacity? Shannon, Evelyn, I know IU East uses it frequently. Melody, you had used it. Zoom took off during COVID. It was kind of the new face of everything that we were doing. And no one knew how to use it. Like I said, I've got Nancy trying to log in here. Give me just a second, get her admitted. There we go. So Zoom literally for me was the only platform we were using. So I want to make sure you know kind of the day-to-day uses of how to use Zoom as a host and make sure that you feel comfortable with the settings. Obviously, these are the two settings everyone knows the most, your mute button and your stop video button. But there's some cool features inside of those. If you click on your black bar down at the bottom, does everyone see that where it says stop video? Don't click stop video, but click the little arrow next to it, this one right here. And you will see an option that says choose virtual background. Does everyone see that? Go ahead and pick from your pictures there and choose a virtual background for yourself. Oh, Doretta's at the, we've got a couple people at the bridge. Nice.
I mean, mine says none available.
Okay, so that would mean that you have to add some pictures in there. Some Zoom accounts come with them preloaded. If not, you can go to Google and just Google Zoom backgrounds and add your own unique pictures to it. I see Doretta's on a cattle farm. That's very on point for you, Doretta. I love it. Christy's got a custom one that's got her name and her company brand on there. This is really a lot of fun. Evelyn's got a bird on hers. We've actually done some hype meetings where we've said, come to the meeting with your best virtual background. And it's a lot of fun. Like you could do your next group meeting and have the best virtual backgrounds. And you can see they're kind of fun. They're funky. They've got a good vibe to them. It makes your meeting a lot more fun to see where people pick. We're actually, as a chamber, getting ready to roll out some local ones that are going to come out and have some cool local flair behind them. So stay tuned for those. Any questions about these two buttons? I think we use them. If you've used Zoom at all, you've used these two buttons.
Roxie, do you see on my virtual background how it looks like my hair is flying? How do you make that stop?
It's really just kind of your computer screen. So I sit really close to my computer, so it sees my face much better. If you sit further back though, I start to disappear and my hair's flying around. So Yeah. There's some great filters and some great backgrounds. If you just Google Zoom backgrounds, you can get all kinds of great ones. We did one as a staff one time where we all picked our favorite magazine front. So we all look like models. I had like the People magazine, and it had like, you know, the articles around it. So you can have a lot of fun with Zoom backgrounds. And it's a great way to, you know, kind of break up the day-to-day boring of Zoom. Okay, so when you're hosting a meeting, make sure that your security is always in check. So when you click the security button, it just makes sure that if you need to rename anybody, if you need to hide people or lock people out, that's the button where you're going to be able to do all of that at. If this is kind of your, oh no, someone's in here that shouldn't be in here, just go straight to security and remove that person. It keeps you safe. The participants, this is going to give you a list of everybody in the meeting. It's also going to give you the option to invite people if you need to invite someone. So if Lisa had said, I can't find my link, and she had sent me a text, I could have just emailed her the link right from there. We're going to come back to the polls button in just a second, but how does everyone feel about chat? Are you pretty comfortable with the chat option? I see Hayden's got the Ohio State background now. Jody's giving me a thumbs up. She feels good with chat. Love it. A few more things to note on the bar at the bottom, or some people have it at the top of their screen, depending on your computer. The record button. If you're recording a meeting like I am today, this just makes sure that you can record it from your computer or to the cloud. If you aren't comfortable with the cloud settings, always just record it to your computer, and it just downloads like a movie file to your computer. Then you can upload that movie file to YouTube. You can then share it out with your guest after the meeting. Any questions about the record button? I know that's gotten a lot of questions in the past. What's it recording? I will say that anything in the chat box is being recorded. So if you're sending private messages, make sure that they're appropriate and something that you would want to see and if they ever produce that chat. So if you're having a behind the scenes conversation, those are recorded. Just a heads up. And it's a good way if you have any kind of, I remember one time I was in a classroom and a couple of students were messaging me privately, and I was able to answer their questions, and they weren't on the public sphere as well, but you can always use that however you'd like. Shannon's now in Vegas, which sounds like an amazing trip right now. We will come back to breakout rooms in just a second, but there's also the reactions button where you can give thumbs up, hand claps, anything like that. Those are a lot of fun. There's also in the chat box some options if you want to give, tell your presenter that you need to take a break or they're going too slow, you need to tell them to speed up. You can give them thumbs up, thumbs down. There's some great reaction buttons there too that you can engage your audience with. And then on the more button, I actually find this really exciting. And this is a new feature that Zoom has rolled out in the past 6 months. When you're recording, when you have a Zoom going live, you can actually play it on Facebook Live, YouTube. You can use Workplace, which is kind of a new app. So if you want to have a great conversation and share it on Facebook at the same time, Zoom gives you that feature, and it's under More. It's a real, you don't have to do it. We're not doing it today, but I could have easily just clicked live on Facebook and it would have linked to the Chamber Live Facebook and shared this with our Facebook community as well. I will say if you do that, you do have to monitor the Facebook page as well for comments or questions or anything like that. So usually you need more than one staff person to manage that. Okay. The next thing I want to do and quickly talk about is sharing your screen. There's just a couple things I want to mention to you when you share your screen. Always make sure you're sharing what you want your audience to see. And so if you click that you want to share this screen, the most common one people click on, they can see anything that is on your screen. And if you click just this 101 presentation or whatever this button is, they're only going to see that screen. So they're only going to see that web page. If you click off while you're sharing and you end up going to Facebook or to your emails, they're not going to see it. They're just going to see that original screen that you click on. Down here, I've made this mistake many times. I've started a Zoom share, it has a video in it, or it has an audio clip in it, and I haven't clicked these two buttons. Your audience will not hear, and the video will come in very choppy. So always make sure if you're doing any kind of sound or video that you click these two buttons. Any questions about sharing? These are all things that if you've used Zoom for a few times, you've probably done these. Okay, so now it's quiz time. Who remembers? Drop it in the chat box if you remember what my one rule was to remember. Let's see. Hayden got it. Nice. Never post on social. Oh, there comes everybody else. Hayden, I've got a gift card for you. I'll send over to Primex for you. We are excited about this to give this away, but also I want to remind you to never, ever share your link on social media. And I'm going to tell you a story that is absolutely mortifying and actually happened to me the beginning of COVID. We were hosting, oh, I love that virtual background, ladies. Great job. You're on the beach. Who doesn't want to be on the beach, right?
We got to take it off though, because we can't sit that close together.
That's not social distancing, ladies. So I will tell you this story. Please do not embarrass me and tell other people. This stays right here in this group. We were hosting a Zoom meeting with Governor Holcomb as the chamber, and we were having all these big wigs come in. And we were so excited. We posted the link on the social media page and we're like, we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Can't wait. We're so excited. And all of a sudden 60 people are in this Zoom call and it's great. And Melissa clicked admit all to the waiting room and she didn't scroll to see who was in the waiting room. All of a sudden we had pornographic images, pornographic noises, R-rated content that you don't want the governor to see. And you don't want the governor to see at your Zoom meeting. No one knew what to do. No one knew how to handle it. And all I did, because I was so scared and embarrassed, was just shut my laptop. I didn't know what to do. I shut my laptop and I was like, well, I'm fired. I'm gonna quit my job, or I'm fired or I'm quitting. I don't know which is coming first. And Lisa says she was on the call. Lisa, you remember this, right? It was bad.
I thought it was funny though, but I was so new to Zoom, I didn't know how to have my camera on or anything. So I'm just listening from my phone. And I think you finally told me just get off of it and restart.
So we had to shut down. We got Zoom bombed. And this was the most terrifying thing I had ever been through. And I just remember Melissa's face went pale white. She didn't know what to do. We're getting calls from the governor. Is this a terrorist attack? Are we under, and no, it's just Zoom bombing. What happened is these hackers go online and they look for Zoom links. And all their job is to embarrass everyone. They post all these disgusting photos, videos, images, sounds. They take over the chat box. It's horrible. Learn from my mistake and never post your Zoom link on social media. When you're doing this, make sure those Zoom features are enabled. The waiting room. We had a waiting room, but we didn't have assigned roles on our team. So Melissa and I are both on there running the Zoom call, and she just clicks admit all because she's running the conversation. She's talking to everyone, when in reality, it should have been me admitting person by person and checking their names. If we had looked, we would have realized that that was not someone from Richmond, Indiana or Wayne County, Indiana. The name was very clearly a hacker name, and it was just like a bunch of letters all jumbled together. So just use caution. If Evelyn and Doretta, you're on a call together, have one person run the meeting and one person run the waiting room and checking people in. It just makes it a lot easier, especially in those big high profile meetings. They saw the name governor and they were like, oh, this is the perfect opportunity to Zoom bomb someone.
Hey, Roxie.
Yeah.
So we have been hosting, as you know, virtual meetings every month.
Yes.
So what could we do as a group to admit persons to the meeting when it's the host, like yourself, that sets up the meeting itself?
Absolutely. Great question. So what I did today is I have a printed list of those who registered,
Okay.
and I checked the waiting room. And just because
Okay.
I'm extra cautious of this, now not everybody is.
Right.
Mostly the person hosting the Zoom, if they've ever done any kind of Zoom call, they know to look for this. If they've done any kind of, it's very clear when it's a hacker name.
Okay.
It's very, you've
I'm
got
just thinking some of our speakers who aren't as familiar with our group and our members might not know everyone's names. So that makes sense.
a great option there would to be asked to be made a co-host. So if you had said, Shannon would say, I want to be a co-host. When that person logs on, they can automatically make you a co-host by just right-clicking on your name and clicking make co-host, and then you can also see the waiting room.
Okay,
And
great.
admit people.
Thanks.
That's a great way around that if you feel really uncomfortable.
I think just after listening to you, Roxy, moving forward, Shannon, I've got some ideas. So we
Okay,
can
good.
make sure that doesn't happen.
Sounds good.
I would always just go with your gut. If you feel like somebody doesn't belong, you can keep them in the waiting room and send them a message saying, hey, can you clarify who you are? Or can you tell us a little bit about, how did you get this link, or whatever your question may be. I was on a Zoom call, it's been probably 3 or 4 months, and it was a meeting with Hype and IU East. It was an Adulting 101, and there was a name in there that I didn't recognize. And so I just sent her a message. I said, hey, are you a student at IU East? And she said, yep, I'm a virtual student. And I said, okay, come on in. And it was fine. Like, usually the hackers aren't going to respond to you, or they'll just
Right.
So
Okay.
great way to prevent yourself from any embarrassing moments.
We have had a person that was on one of our prior calls that none of us knew and didn't know how to handle it. So this is a good way to do that going forward.
Absolutely. And I will say, unfortunately, with Zoom accounts right now, you've got parents with their kids' names, you've got kids' names with their parents' names, you've got Hayden with Lisa's name. You never know. There's weird things that happen, right? So just making sure that you're talking to the people before you let them in, you're being extra cautious on your side, and you have people who are responsible for each role, like who lets people in, who's monitoring the chat box, all of that.
Thank you.
I have a question, Roxy. So you've talked about, Zoom bombing and kind of managing that. That's a little bit more general. I think we've all seen at this point a video that went viral close to the beginning where there's a woman in a meeting and she takes her computer into the bathroom, which why? That's first and foremost. Like, I would just not ever do that, but that's me. So she takes it into the bathroom and we all know what happens from there. But so that happened to her, and actually more recently, it was certainly, without getting into any specifics, we had an employee have a somewhat, embarrassing moment where they didn't realize that their camera was on. And so the problem in that situation, I'm telling that story to kind of understand and to make sure that we have really kind of an accurate understanding of what we did wrong so that we can fix it, going forward.
Absolutely.
I was talking and trying to, I noticed what was going on. And so I was trying to turn that person's camera off because I know that is a capability Zoom has, but I was not given that option. It was as if Doretta had made me a co-host. And I know because I received the email, but at that point, I was not able to see any of those options to turn off that person's video. So can you maybe give us some insight of what might have happened wrong in that case? And then how can we fix it? Of course, we know that we'll have, someone else making sure that they're managing the meeting so that I'm not trying to do it, but still.
Well, and Roxy, to add to what Evelyn said, in that situation we had, because I originally had set up the meeting, but when I made Evelyn the co-host, it took away all of my stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a very common mistake and something that we actually had a problem with yesterday because we couldn't figure out where the rights were. I always keep myself as the host, and then if I need to, when I go to Doretta, I can also make her co-host, depending on how you have your settings on the back end of Zoom, so that initial setup, your co-host should be able to. Now, it sounds like you've got some co-hosts, maybe some rules in there, some red tape around what the co-host might be on your back end. And that would be a good way to prevent that. If that happens in the future, what I would do in that situation is I would privately message, if Doretta had the rights, I would privately message her and say, hey, can you turn the camera off for Lisa, or can you just remove Lisa from the meeting until that, and probably at that point, if she's removed from the meeting, she's going to realize something's going on that probably shouldn't be happening. There's really just, unfortunately, like if Zoom sometimes just goes crazy, right? It's not a perfect platform, and you just have to do the best that you can in that situation. And we've all seen, you can mute people if you're the co-host. If you are the host, you can remove people, and that's under the participant list, that participant button. You just click on someone's name and remove them straight out of the meeting. Does that answer that question, Evelyn, or give a little bit more clarity?
Yes, it is helpful. I think what we just need to do is just make sure that we're actually checking where things are ahead of time. It was important, I guess, and I guess this is the other question. Did I need to be co-host? Because all I really needed to do was to be able to talk at some point and then share my screen for about a minute to show, everybody a presentation I had created. So I didn't need to be co-host for those particular tasks, right?
No, you should, if your background is set, if your back end of Zoom is set, you should be able to share without having to be co-host.
Okay, so maybe that's another way we can kind of avoid problems in the future.
Yeah, I would recommend, if you're going to be doing any kind of big meeting where you don't want any interruptions or anything like that, take a second and look at your background Zooms, not your meeting specific settings, but your account settings, and just really dive into those. I spent an hour setting them up, really just clicking like, yes, I want my participants to be able to share their screens. And just know that, and think about worst case scenarios when you're setting those up. If every participant has the right to share the screen, somebody might get on that might share something inappropriate. So just know that that could happen. Just think worst case scenario when you're setting up your account. I don't say this to scare you. I'm just giving you the real life experience that I went through.
Well, and yours was a very serious moment, and I'll just share that. I have a friend who experienced something similar, and there was also a racial component to what my friend experienced. There were slurs and all kinds of symbols, and it was really a very frightening and disheartening moment, in addition to the pornography, right? So there are all of these things kind of happening at once. And so it really can be kind of more than a funny story. It can really, really be very serious and damaging for people. So
absolutely, there are some implications to that. If that happens, there are some legal things you can do. Unfortunately, they're not very successful. If you're with a company and that happens, I would immediately report it. I know, Evelyn, they would report it to you, honestly, to the HR person. It would probably be a security feature that your company may pull back and say, we're not doing Zoom anymore after that. It can get nasty, and the Zoom bombings are getting worse as like the attacks are becoming fewer and fewer, but they're becoming bigger and bigger when they are happening. So be extra careful with that. I see a question in the chat box about private messaging from Anna. Anna, if you have the chat box set, and I can't remember what I did for this meeting today, you should be able to click in the chat box where it says to, and you can drop down and send to anyone specifically if the host has set that up. Now, I may have turned that off for this meeting. I can't remember what I did.
It's
I see
off.
some people shaking their head. Yes, I turned it off, it looks like. Now you should be able to send privately and directly. Does that look like you can? Some people are looking. Okay, so there is when you're host, there's a little box with 3 little dots in the chat box, and you can have participants can chat with just the audience. They can chat with nobody. They can chat with everyone publicly or everyone publicly and directly. So there's some 4 options there in the chat box if you're the host, and you can change those up. Okay, so now that we've got the serious stuff out of the way, let's have a little fun and talk about some fun things you can do with Zoom to make your meetings more engaging. Zoom fatigue is real. There's some new data out right now that is honestly quite concerning about how people are reacting to Zoom. If it can be a phone call, make it a phone call. If it can be an email, make it an email. Just because we have Zoom, we don't need to have every meeting on Zoom. I got on one the other day and I was invited to the Zoom chat, and all the person wanted to do was check in and see how the chamber was doing. And I said, I love the idea of seeing people face to face. This is, as close as we can get. It could have been done on a phone call, and it could have been done a lot quicker. It could have been done, it was just more relaxing. So use the technology that you have that exists. Your phones all have a conference feature that you can add multiple people onto a phone call. If you need to learn how to do that, I can show you. Great option is if you don't have to do a Zoom, don't do a Zoom, because people are tired of them. The first thing I always do in a Zoom is have some kind of welcome, where I had today, everyone introduce themselves in the chat box. I know some meetings we've done, Lisa, you and I have done this, where we've had people answer a fun question. What would you do if COVID ended at 6 p.m. today? What would be the first thing you did? Always just make it fun. I sometimes have music playing, encourage small talk at this point. We all go to these meetings in person pre-COVID and had small talk. Oh, how are you? How's the kids? I heard you went somewhere this weekend. How was that? That's not happening anymore, and people they miss small talk. So open up the chat room, or open up the room a few minutes early, welcome people as they come in, say hello, encourage them to chat between themselves. Today, Nancy said something to Doretta about a meeting they have coming up, just chatting and having some fun. Make it inviting and warm, and don't, as the host, encourage people to say hello, unmute themselves, show themselves on camera as they log in. Hayden, I love that background too. Great choice. And now Shannon's in front of a stack of books. I love it.
Oh, I didn't know you guys could see that. I'm just messing around with the backgrounds.
Yeah, I love it. So polls, we did a poll here at the beginning. Let's do another one. This is a great way to engage your listeners and your participants. It kind of breaks up the boring piece of the Zoom. So go ahead and answer that question. There's 2 of them there. You can pick multiple choice on that first one. Go. Give people a few more seconds. Great, we'll go ahead and end that poll. So it looks like a lot of you want to go to events after this. I can't wait for live concerts to start back up after COVID. Polls are a great option if you are looking for fun ways to engage your audience, or if you have to take a vote. I don't know how many times I've been in meetings and they're like, everybody say aye, and then it's like, aye, and everyone's like, you can do it all right here on, and then it actually prints out who voted in favor, who voted against. It actually makes it really easy to use, and is a great tool that Zoom offers. What I will say about polls is plan ahead. You don't want to be writing the poll while you've got an audience of people watching you. So I went in early. This is in the specific meeting settings. At the bottom of the screen, it says polls. You click on it and you can just add questions in. It's a super easy feature and it's a lot of fun to do. So if you have any questions about polls, go ahead and ask those now. Any questions about those? Pretty nice feature that's easy to use. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is breakout rooms. Show of hands are in the chat box. Tell me if you've used breakout rooms before in Zoom. I see some heads shaking. Yes, no, maybe, I might have. I've not. If you've hosted them, they can be exciting and fun and a good way to break the group up a little bit. Christy says she's used them but not set them up herself. So breakout rooms are really simple. Zoom has been great about making everything user friendly. What I will say is that plan ahead once again for those breakout rooms. Zoom sets them automatically to 10 minutes. You can change that to 20 minutes. I used one last week where it was 30 minutes, but I was very clear about what you were doing in that 30 minutes. So you have goals. You've set, just like you would in your normal day-to-day meetings where you have everybody go to different tables, make sure that they know what they're working on while they're working in that group. Lisa says she's been in breakout rooms during the chamber meetings. Yeah, we use them a lot. Have specific goals. And if you have enough staff, make sure that you have a room leader to each room so that they can manage any questions or they can keep the group on track. And then at the end of the 10 minutes or whatever your time set, Zoom automatically brings you back to the group. So as the host, you can pop into any of the rooms and know that they're operating fine on themselves, or you can just sit back and wait till all the members come back. It's a great feature. It's a great way to break up the groups and you can have smaller conversations. When we did the School is Cool presentation and senior celebration, we had 120 people on that Zoom call, and they were all high school students who were seeing their friends sometimes for the first time in months. And so we started the meeting with all of them in their own school breakout rooms, and they were able to chat and catch up. The principals were able to say hello to them, and then we brought them all together. And it was a great way to see everyone and let them have a little bit of private time too as a group.
Roxy,
yeah.
Did you say that the breakout room, is that something you set up in that very first screen that you showed us, the whole setup page and stuff?
Yeah. So if you need to set it up on the back end of your account. So under your account settings that you're allowed to have breakout rooms, and you can set the time there for what your normal time is. So my normal time is 10 minutes. In your meeting specifics though, so when I came into this meeting, if I knew we were going to have breakout rooms, I would give myself a few minutes before the meeting started to assign the breakout rooms, because you can actually name them and you can assign people to them. So if I wanted Shannon in room A and I wanted Lisa in group B, you can pre-assign those, or you can let them choose what group they're in. Did that answer that question, Lisa? Okay. Any other questions about breakout rooms, how to run them successfully? Okay. I always set an agenda when I'm setting a Zoom. This helps it run a lot smoother, especially if you have multiple presenters. Last week I had Bob Beaver on a call, and if you know Bob, you know he can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and your meeting will completely derail itself. So I set Bob on a very strict calendar and an agenda, and I said, I'm logging in at 11:45. I'm going to run mic check and screen check. You're going to log in at 11:50. We're going to run a mic check for you then, and we'll go over any other questions you may have. At 12 o'clock, at 12:05, we're doing these very specific things. And that helps him understand, like as a presenter who may not be comfortable with Zoom, that there is a schedule to this and these meetings can't run forever.
Roxy, one more question. Do you automatically, like when the meeting's up, and you may have already said this, I'm sorry. When the meeting's up, does everyone just automatically pop out of the breakout rooms, or are you pushing buttons behind the scenes?
Nope, it automatically, after that 10 minutes, it brings you right back. Yeah. Any other questions about the agenda or? Okay. This is a fun feature that if you're like me, you're on the Zoom call and you're constantly looking at yourself and you're not looking at your audience, or you're not listening to your speaker. You do have the option to hide yourself. And this has been something that psychologists are starting to recommend to people, because we're getting so used to seeing our face in this kind of weird angle that you can actually hide yourself by right-clicking on your video and click hide self view. So right now I can't see myself. I usually give up most of my meetings without being able to see myself. That gives me the opportunity to focus on you a little bit more. If there's a speaker, I'm listening in on you and not worried about, what's going on behind me. When I'm at home working and the dogs are fighting behind me and they're doing all kinds of weird, Hudson at one point was jumping up like behind me in one of my meetings and it looked like a kangaroo. I didn't see it. I could hear it happening, but I could see it happening. The people were like laughing and pointing. There's just a good way to not get distracted by your own self in meetings. So hide yourself. It's a great tip. Most importantly, when you're hosting Zoom, have fun, relax, don't be stressed out by it. I think sometimes I'm hosting Zoom calls and I'm not breathing the whole time I'm hosting it because I'm so worried about all the details going on. Make sure that you just take a second, make sure you have good lighting for yourself, use ring lights if you have to, have good natural lighting so you're not washed out. And also, if you want to play music, if you want to have fun, do polls, breakout rooms, make sure that you make it engaging for your audience. But most importantly, practice everything. Get your staff on a call and make sure everyone feels comfortable with what they're doing before they actually host a big meeting. Okay, what questions do you have for me?
Roxy, I have a question. So I hid myself.
Yeah.
How do I find myself again?
Great question. You should be able to just right click on your name in the participant list.
Okay.
You should be able to.
I was like, how do I find myself now?
You should be able to.
I just clicked on the little box at the top of the screen that says view, where you can sign it. In there it says view yourself.
Yep.
You can get it back that way, Doretta.
Up and view.
Nancy,
Up
can
at the
you
top
repeat
of your
that?
screen.
That's where at the top of the screen where it says view with the boxes where you can do a full view. You click on that after you've gotten rid of yourself.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
You're back.
Yeah.
I'm back. I was like, I hid myself and I thought, how do I find myself? I'm like missing.
I still can't find it. Oh no.
It's on where it says like gallery view or
Full page view.
zone. Yeah.
Top.
Yes. Okay. All right.
You're
Yes.
back.
Thank
I
you.
found it. What other questions do you have for me about Zoom? I see the chat box.
Like Jeannie has a question.
So there's how do I set up if I don't have like a photo attached to your account? That's in your settings account behind the scenes. You can set, I know Nancy and it looks like Doretta and a few of us have like headshots or something like that.
Yeah.
Those are great options. Set those up on your account ahead of time. It says like profile picture. That's a great option. Great question. Any other questions or anything? Always feel free to reach out to me if you're getting into a Zoom call and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Lisa, question?
Sorry. To tag to the comment you just made, where are your settings to even attach the picture? Like that's how.
So zoom.com, when you log on to zoom.com, there's an account. It says like my account. And when you click my account, you'll be able to set up all your background account information. So your profile picture, you can set up, how beauty filters or anything like that you might want to set up. Those are all there as well.
Oh. I don't think I've ever
Zoom does have a feature, and not a lot of people know about this, where you can like beautify yourself. It's like an Instagram or a Snapchat filter. You might have seen some of the filters recently. There was one, a professor changed himself into a cat and couldn't figure out how to change himself back. And he kept saying to the students, but I'm not actually a cat. And the students were like, we know. And he was like, but I don't know how to change it. So he taught the entire course, and it was like some theory class as a cat. And the students were, of course, all over TikTok and Instagram with this, cat filter with their professor, and it went viral. So if you do stuff like that, make sure you're comfortable changing it. Any questions? Stacy and I are over here feeling like the guys from the intern. Great comment. I love it.
I got tickled a little bit ago because I thought of it and then I couldn't stop laughing. Thank God I had my mask on.
We could tell. Does anyone have any other questions or comments for Roxie? No? Well, thank you so much, Roxie. I personally have been taking notes here. I've learned multiple things today. I really, really, really appreciate your time. I think I speak on behalf of everyone that I'm sure we've all are going to walk away here with a couple tips and tricks to help us down the road. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Roxy.
And I'd like to add that if anyone needs SHRM recertification credits for today's session, and it's SHRM only, not HRCI for this session, please feel free to reach out to me.
And I just have one last quick announcement before we end the meeting today. So mark your calendars. Our next session will also be held virtually. It's going to be on Thursday, April 8th. And the next topic is going to be leadership. And it's going to be presented by Faith Stepanovich. And Faith is the field service director for Indiana SHRM. So we're excited to have her present for us. I've heard her talk a couple of times in the past. She's very engaging. So April 8th, and just watch your emails over the next few weeks. We'll be sure to send out communication. So thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Have a
you.
great day,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Press and hold your.